Yeah, why
Yeah,
don't you,
yeah.
that way you can do act, because we have to take roll call still first, so.
Hey, 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Jeff.
I think you saw it last time, the normal procedure is just I call you. All right, we're going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on February 2nd, 2022. Alderman Como is serving as the temporary clerk. Would you, Mr. Temporary Clerk, please call the roll?
Alderman Clee,
Here.
Alderman Como is here, Alderman Govea,
Here.
Alderman Clemmons, Alderwoman Timmons,
Here.
Alderman Moran, and Mayor Donchis.
I am here. All right, thank you very much. So, although it's not on the agenda, our previous clerk has been transferred to another committee, so we need to elect a clerk. Why don't we open, although it's not on the agenda, we need to do that because of the Alderman Jetty's transfer to another committee. Are there nominations for the clerk? Alderman Govea.
Yes, I would like to nominate Alderman Cuomo for clerk.
Okay. Anyone else want to make nominations? If not, all those in favor of Alderman Como, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and we now have a new clerk. And let the record show that Alderman Clemmons has now come into the meeting at a 7:01 or so. Public comments. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the committee?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. Is all the business, I believe, is new business, correct? There's no old business, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll wait till the end. Thank you.
All right. We go on to communications, the first being from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Como.
It's a motion to accept, place on file, and award a bid to Alight for the implementation of the Alight Benefits Administration Solution for all insurance plans for the city in an amount not to exceed $480,000, which is $160,000 a year for 3 years. Funding through Department 113 Benefits, Fund 54400, Software Licensing Benefits, Internal Service Fund by roll call.
Ms. Kleiner.
Good evening. Kim Kleiner, Administrative Services Director. I'd like to give a little bit of background for those of you that may not know about our benefits programs. Back on January 5th, I wrote the board a memo detailing the health of the Benefits Health Fund. And if any of you didn't receive it, I'm glad to resend it. I try to do that once a year just to give you a flavor of what's happening and where we are with the fund. As of today, the fund balance is a little over $9 million. Back when COVID struck, we were faced with a very difficult situation within benefits. So historically, benefits, and we manage benefits for all of the city, school, police, fire, city. We were faced with a problem where historically the benefits had all been paper enrollment. Here we are with COVID, and we're struck with the idea of having to get all the paper enrollments from across the city. Now, we are fortunate over at the school department, there is an HR office, and they work in partnership with us to collect all the school enrollments and then bring them all to the city. All of the input is done here within 3 staff members. So This past year, you had 2,089 enrollments. So they enter all of those enrollments into our Lawson system, and then into the Anthem system, which covers our health, and then into the dental system, which is Delta Dental. So you can imagine, not only is it a totally inefficient process, but there's a lot of room for human error. When you're keying that amount of data, it's natural to happen. So we knew back then that we wanted to change this and that it needed to be a priority. WBS, Workplace Benefit Solutions, is our consultant that deals with us on all healthcare matters. They recommended that we go out to an RFP through them, which is commonly what we do for health products, and that we look at bids from some of the top leaders, and that's exactly what we did this fall. So they put out an RFP to all of their health industry leaders, and we got 3 back, technically 4, one that we kicked back, but 3 that we considered, Alight and Benefit Express being the top 2, the third being kind of disqualified for lack of services. The top bidder had everything that we wanted. So Alight not only can totally satisfy the city's needs in terms of their deliverables, but they have an incredible employee education package. So as many of you may know, we have been in the process of a healthcare redesign. And part of that redesign is moving our employees from what we call our old HMO 250, 500 to our new HMO 1500, 3000. That takes an incredible amount of education, right? To educate employees on what these new benefits entail, what benefit package is best for them and their family's unique services. This software has that capability built into it. It will model an employee's unique situation. They input key data, family size, maybe healthcare situations, pharmacy needs, and it will walk them through what benefit plan and what their costs could look like throughout the year. That was very important to us. The other part of this software that was very important to us is it's all automatic feeds. So they will give us 10 automatic feeds to vendors, which will stop all of that input. And what we're starting to get back from our vendors like Anthem and Delta and Hartford is that they're willing to kick in. So after my meeting, I wrote my memo to you. It is $160,000 a year, 3-year deal to start with. Hartford came back and agreed to kick in 20. So that I got. After this, we are still working with our other partners to see if they will be willing. And why are they willing? Because the data that they're going to get through these automatic feeds is more reliable, and it's faster, and it allows them to be more efficient on their end. So that's basically where we are. I tried to cover in my memo to you all of the features that I thought were beneficial to the city. So I don't want to repeat anything, but certainly I'm happy to answer any questions.
Before we go further, I didn't recognize Alderman Tebow, who's also present, although not a member of the committee. Any questions from anybody? Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Kleiner, do you think the others will kick anything in, and if so, to what extent? Or do you even have any idea? Because I can see how this would be beneficial to them.
Absolutely. I think it is beneficial. I think especially when you're dealing with a large vendor like Anthem. It's early in our process. Generally, we'll have renewal conversations with Anthem in March. I am very hopeful that they will. It has a lot of benefits on their side. And it's not uncommon in the industry for your vendors to help you with your benefits administration package.
Just a quick
Go
follow-up.
ahead.
Is this a permanent help, or is it just a one-shot deal to get us onto the system?
Great question. With Hartford, it's a one-shot deal.
Okay.
For now. What we hope, now, we're dealing with an incredibly short window here. So our open enrollment is mid-April. That means that our information technology team, which loves me right about now for this, has about 8 weeks to get this implemented. Alight has assured us that that can happen. And we are due to start Friday if you see it fit to approve. But it does have to go to the Board of Aldermen, so we won't start any initial real, but we'll start putting together plans of action and things of that sort, things that we can hold until the mayor signs the contract. I think that we need to look at not only the benefit to the city, but the benefit to the employees. It was incredibly difficult for these employees to enroll in their benefits. And we heard it loud and clear that they were confused, confusion creates errors, they didn't feel well informed, and that's just not a good place to put our employees in. So, you know, the benefits team is really excited about this. I think it's a huge step forward for the city.
Thank you.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question. So this would eliminate the paper enrollment for the most part, correct? And that would move that onto more of a online portal kind of system to enroll in the benefits?
Yes, that's correct. The only time that we would have to see, if someone came to us and said they didn't have access, we could supply them access to a computer. And we're trying to work through now, like with some of our departments like DPW, some of us going over and actually bringing laptops and doing sessions with the employees, some that may have more challenges than others with technology. So we'll certainly put every step forward to do that. But if push comes to shove and they haven't been able to sign on, then we'll always hand them a paper enrollment and walk them through it.
Of course, thank you.
Anybody else? Alderwoman Cleve.
Thank you. Just a quick question, Director Kleiner. Would the employees not have access to like electronic EOBs and that type of thing, so they can see what got paid, what didn't get paid, or what portion and so on that they would have to be responsible for?
Another great question. So this software has the technology to do electronic statements, to hook onto Anthem, which provides the EOBs. It has the technology to hook them onto our vendors so they can get statements. It's not just a modeling, it provides full self-service.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Excuse me. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Next, an item, another communication from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Camone.
So the item before us is to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of a 2022 Harley-Davidson FLHTP motorcycle, which would replace the 1997 Harley-Davidson motorcycle in an amount not to exceed $26,220, funded through Department 150, Police Department Fund 81500, Vehicles Surf, by roll call.
And I believe I see Karen Smith from the Police Department. I don't know if there's anyone else.
Brian Soika, Police Supervisor, National Police.
Oh, okay. Could you just briefly explain the item? Thanks. please?
Yes, we're looking to actually replace the 1997 Harley motorcycle. It is a training motorcycle. We use it for training the guys, the new people that go into the motorcycle unit. We have two newer Harleys, they're 2010s. We will be taking one of those 2010s and transferring it over to the training division because it goes to extensive training. It's really, really rough on the bike. So we're taking the new bike and put it into service as a marked patrol vehicle.
All right, any questions, comments? I don't see anything. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item, Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Camone.
The motion before us is to accept, place on file, and approve change order number 1 to the contract with ChemServe Environmental Analysts of Milford, New Hampshire for water quality testing services at Nashua landfill sites for the Solid Waste Department in the amount of $40,795 funded through Department 168 Solid Waste, Fund Solid Waste, Account Classification 53, Professional and Technical Services by roll call.
And Mr. Santos may be here from the Solid Waste Department.
That's correct.
All right, could you give us a brief explanation of this item, please?
Yes, absolutely. You may recall we started the year out in a drought situation, and come summer, July, August, rainfall certainly picked up, and we had some high intensity events that led to some leachate stresses in our system, and the DES wanted extra testing as a result of that, including testing for PFAS, which I'm sure folks are familiar with now. And this change order is to cover costs for monthly monitoring going forward for this fiscal year. We're working to try to reduce that, but for the time being, I think we need to plan for the monthly monitoring until we get the go-ahead from DES to drop it down.
All right, thank you. Any comments, questions from anyone? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next communication again from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Camone.
The motion before us is to accept, place on file, and approve the award of a contract for interpretive historic signs to Preservation Company of Kensington, New Hampshire in an amount not to exceed $35,731. Funding through Department 160 Admin Engineering Fund is the bond. Activity is Broad Street Parkway by roll call.
Yes, and I think Mr. Hudson is here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So this is one of the last remaining items from the former Broad Street Parkway project, now known as Veterans Memorial Parkway. This is a commitment that was negotiated with Federal Highway, New Hampshire Department of Transportation, New Hampshire Division of Historic Resources. And what it is due to needing to take down some buildings, historic buildings in the mill yard, the commitment's been made to prepare some historic signage, interpretive signage, so that visitors of the area can read about the history of the area. This contract is for consulting services. The Preservation Company will design the signs and work with DHR to get their final approval of language. And then also they have a subcontractor which will construct and erect the signs. 2 signs are envisioned. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Was this the old boiler house? Is that what this is related to?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, there are two things we're mitigating for. One was a removal of the Charles Gordon House at 40 Pine Street. And that's in the French Village Historic District area. That's an area that's eligible to be listed on the National Register. The other was for the demolition of the Mill Yard Waste House. And this sign there will talk about the waste house, but it'll also talk about the canal and other unique features of the area.
Thank you. If I, just
Yeah.
briefly, I can remember when that was a controversial decision to knock that down and basically make that parkway go through there. So I remember that. It's funny that it's taken this long to get this compromise done, but I'm happy to see it.
Alderman Camone.
I just had a question for Mr. Hudson. Was this something that was bid on, or was this contract just awarded to Preservation Company?
This contract is being awarded to Preservation Company based upon their experience. There was a different entity that did the historic work for the project, but he's since retired. This company, I'd say, is the preeminent company in the area for doing this type of work. They do nearly all the DOT related project work and DHR work. So it's a well-known company, and it's being directly awarded to them, given their capability and experience with doing this type of thing.
If I could follow up. Just so I understand the process a little bit, it seems silly to quibble over a smaller dollar amount in the grand scheme of things. But when I look at the breakdown of costs associated with this, it looks like there's 65 hours of labor for an architectural historian, which is over $5,000, 30 hours for a project manager, 50 hours for a principal, and then over $20,000 in material costs, which to me seems excessive for a sign. Could you elaborate a little bit on what some of these costs are related to?
Sure. So obviously they need to design the sign, so you need to develop what will go in the sign, and that's an iterative process. They need to do a lot of historic research through old records, looking for old photographs, old maps, and also just going through the history of the area to define what will be appropriate to put on the signs. And that's not done independently. That's in full collaboration with New Hampshire Division of Historic Resources and others. So it's a time-consuming and collaborative type of effort. I can't speak directly to the sign design and fabrication cost. As for two signs, obviously they need to erect them on a support structure. The sign can take a variety of forms, but they're usually pretty attractive signs and are made to last. So yeah, that is how it breaks down, and we're confident that this team, they've done a lot of this. They do a lot of it. So we're confident that we'll get a good product in the end.
One last follow-up, please. So with this cost, will they be handling the installation as well as the fabrication, or is that something they're going to hand off to us and have somebody like DPW erect the signs?
No, my understanding is that they will do the erection. This is kind of a full package price, is my understanding.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, again from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Camone.
The motion is to accept, place on file, and approve the contract to McFarland Johnson to complete phases 2, 3, and 4 for improvements at the intersection of East Hollis Street and Bridge Street in the amount not to exceed $440,939.27. Funding through Department 183 Economic Development, Fund 53107, Architect and Engineering Services, New Hampshire DOT grant by roll call.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development. This is a project that has been a long time coming. As I explain this memo to you, we also have with me Julie Shizmitz online, the city's long-term transportation planner. I'm going to ask her to pull up some slides, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
that will help better explain this project. But essentially, this is the second phase, if you will, of a contract that we first entered into in 2018. It was a multi-phase contract. This contract contemplates phases 2, 3, 4, I believe. Phase 1 was an engineering study that we completed, and now we will be continuing on with preliminary, final, and then bidding services, essentially all the design work for this transportation improvement project. This project is 100% funded by the state, so long as we stay at that 3.6 million level. And time is of the essence to make sure that we maintain the project schedule and the costs that we've been initially quoted. McFarland Johnson is the engineer of record that will be executing on this. We did competitively bid this through an RFQ back in 2017, and we just recently received approval from the state to proceed with the project. I'll stop my comments there, and I'm just going to ask Julie to quickly walk you all through the slides that she put together. I know some of you are newer to this body, and so this might be a newer project for you, even though it's been around for a few years now.
Yes, please, Ms. Chismas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Cummings. As Tim said, my name is Julie Chismas. I'm a transportation analyst and long-range planner in the Community Development Division. Don't really have a lot to add to what Tim said. I think he summed it up very well. We went through the engineering study phase of this project with McFarland Johnson, and they have developed an alternative that was approved by the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, and also the various boards and committees of the city. And you can see alternative 4 before you. It proposes to improve mobility and access, also facilitate land use, and provide an aesthetically pleasing gateway into the city as recommended in the 2004 East Hollis Street Plan. As Tim said, this is a New Hampshire Department of Transportation project. It follows the guidelines of the local public agency program, which is pretty prescribed, and we have followed all the applicable requirements and have received a notice to proceed with the next 3 phases of the project: preliminary design, final design, and bidding services. They also approved the scope and fee for the work as proposed by McFarland Johnson, and the contract amount is $440,000, $937.27. And as Tim said, it is 100% federally funded, and the city will be reimbursed at 100%.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just one
Yes,
last comment.
go ahead.
So just so folks know that the design that was ultimately selected as the preferred alternative, as well as the selection of the engineering firm, was through a steering committee. It was a grassroots initiative where we had local property owners in and around the area, also members of the Board of Aldermen, particularly Alderwoman June Karen from Ward 7, participating, a couple city staffers, that ultimately helped steer and help make the recommendation, both on the engineering firm and this preferred alternative design that is before you.
Alderwoman Cleve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Cummings. I just have a kind of a quick question. I do remember these conversations that we've been having ongoing, but if we were to miss this window, things are going up and so on, and we go over that cost, what would be the effect to the city? Right now, we don't have to pay anything out of pocket. It's not affecting the taxpayers and so on. But if we delayed this, what would be the effect, do you know?
I'm going to defer to Julie Chismas if she has that. It's a bracketed tier approach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just one number, but it's within a range. We have to pay a certain percentage. And then after it exceeds that number, then we have to pay a little bit more. Julie, do you happen to have that?
Just a minute.
She was scrambling.
I was hoping to delay it long enough that she was going to be able to pull it up, but clearly I didn't speak long enough.
I do remember this conversation that we had.
And you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, no, so this particular contract will be 100% federally funded. It's when we get into construction, if we have overruns on that project. The city, currently we have 100% funded for $3.661 million. If we go over that up to amount of $4,576,250, the portion to be shared with we would have to pay 20% of that overage, so it would be 20% of $950,000. And then any amount, if the project cost goes over that $4.5+ million, the city would have to share 50% of the amount over that.
like I said, I did remember this conversation, I just didn't remember the numbers.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
that's why I say time is of the essence, really keeping it on track to ensure that we do the best that we can for the taxpayers here in Nashua is really important. And so that's why moving this along as quickly as possible is imperative.
Thank you.
Anyone? Questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Julie. And we're now on to our next item, which is another communication from Kelly Parkinson, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Camone.
The motion before us is to accept, place on file, and approve a contract for professional engineering services related to the Nashua Downtown Riverfront Implementation Project with Vanass Hangen Bustlin Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $225,365. Funding through Department 183, Economic Development, Fund 53107, Architect and Engineering Services, Riverfront TIF Fund, by roll call.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, for the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development. This is essentially part of the Riverfront TIF that we have been working on for a few years now, as I was before you in the fall and outlined that we had achieved a certain level of design. We are now moving into the next phase. I had mentioned that we are going to be looking for permitting and then final design contracts in the coming weeks. This is the permitting contract for just over $225,000. It was always anticipated to be part of the VHB work, which we competitively bid a few years ago. And so we are looking to get this executed to keep the project on track. Permitting is just one element of the design phase. We will have a final design contract that we'll be anticipating sometime in the next, I would suggest next month or two, and also a construction manager's contract. We just, by way of background, issued an RFQ for construction management services, and I'll be looking to bring that before this body in the near future. My closing comments on this is a TIF process, so this is a little bit unique or different than our traditional procurement process. Anything that is a TIF-related item not only receives a recommendation by this body, it has to go on to the Board of Aldermen for the Board of Aldermen's full approval before the contract can be executed. So this is just one of a multi-step process. I will leave my comments there, Mr. Mayor.
Discussion, questions? Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you again. Director Cummings, I realize it's got to go through this board, it's got to go through, this committee and then the full board. This obviously went through the TIF committee as well, and they're aware of and have they given it their blessings as well?
Not officially, because this was anticipated in the preliminary design elements, because you have to do permitting as part of your design. So it was always understood that VHB would be executing on preliminary design and the permitting. The cost was just recently arrived at, and so the 225 figure wasn't necessarily officially approved by the TIF advisory committee.
Just follow up?
Yeah.
And they have within the TIF funds, this money is there.
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Get back to
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
A point of procedure, I think, when we did the election of the committee clerk, I think the procedure was supposed to be we opened the nominations, then we closed the nominations, and then we voted on him. I think we kind of skipped some steps. I don't know if it truly matters in the grand scheme of things, but I believe that's the way the process is supposed to go.
Well, it does go that way sometimes, but I
Okay.
think in this instance, with only one nominee, it doesn't really matter in the scheme of things.
Thanks.
All right. we wanted to make sure that he didn't withdraw his volunteering before we acted, so we
He
had
wanted
to
to change
quickly.
his mind.
Yeah, right. All right, unfinished business, none. New business resolutions, none. New business ordinances, none. Record of expenditures. Alderman, come on.
The motion before us is that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period from January 14th, 2022 to January 27th, 2022 by roll call.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the committee?
Yes, hi, Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. Let me just start my thing, okay. Just quickly, I would like to understand the TIF program that was just discussed. How do we justify what goes into the TIF program? And why would like a road project go in there? I think we should understand how we grow that and what goes into that, because I'd like to understand that. Also, I think we should address eventually the policy on COVID sick leave. I did get some financial numbers that I couldn't fully understand that showed about 133,000 went into paying for employees that got ill and didn't have to use their sick time because they were vaccinated. As you know, I think I've expressed that I think that policy was a mistake, and we should follow up on that and determine what impact that had on vaccination and what the overall costs are going to be, because $133K for just over really a month of sick time, I think is pretty enormous. I'd like to ask that, Mr. Mayor, you tighten the reins on City Hall and you try to get employees, particularly managers, back to work in the building. I think this COVID remote work has been going on too long, and there is a lot of management that isn't here. Like for a year, Sue Lovering's rarely in, Lisa Foto's rarely in, the finance office is rarely in. And usually if you ask somebody if they're in, they'll tell you they don't even know. They don't know if they're in or out. They don't know if they're working at home or they're here. Go run around City Hall and see if you can find them. I mean, to me, it's like the Love Boat in here, and I think we've got to tighten it up a lot. I think citizens deserve to have their employees working in the building, and I think it's time to get back to that and not allowing very long work from home programs, particularly for upper management. Also, I'm concerned about the barrier issue. I think that that's been pushed off away from the public view and eye that it was supposed to be set up. We had this crisis mode in December. I've been given some inside information that it's being developed and worked on internally, but nobody on the outside knows anything about it. I got very incomplete barrier data in my right to know request. It looks like all of the surveys that were talked about for months, really nobody actually saw them or knew what they looked like. It was just random information that was put out there. I still think there's a lot of frustration on that. And finally, I received an email today from the clerk's office that I think is very disturbing. And you know, Mr. Mayor, I responded with an email to a nonprofit organization over a very hostile response I had received from an executive director, and that executive director is no longer working in that position. And I feel, that was a month ago, and I feel the email I got today is equally as horrendous. It would be up to you to respond, and I know you're not going to do that. But this is ridiculous what was written here, and beyond out of line. Thank you.
Well, just, it is not accurate that these people aren't working or are not in City Hall. Sue Lovering is here all the time. Lisa Foto does not work in City Hall. She works at Public Works.
She's never here.
She's never, rarely in City Hall, but she's at Public Works. And I forget who else you mentioned. John Griffin, was ill for a little while, but he's always here. I mean,
I'll talk
I don't.
to you now. You're very wrong on that. You don't know who your people are.
And you do?
I do at home.
Yeah,
and
okay.
I asked, thank you.
All right. General discussion. Is there any general discussion? No general. Alderwoman Cleave.
Actually, I'm not sure if this is, I always give, you'd think after 5 years I would remember. I just want to make a comment for everybody to be safe with the upcoming storm that's coming on Friday. They've even canceled meetings in the State House in Concord. We probably won't get hit as hard, but most meetings, I think, if not all, have been canceled up there. So just please stay safe and off the roads if you can. It kind of helps DOT and so on kind of clean up those streets.
All right. Remarks by Alderman. Any remarks by Alderman? All right. There's no non-public session. Alderwoman Cleve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I would like to call for adjournment of the Finance Committee at 7:40 p.m.
There's a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and the meeting of the Finance Committee is adjourned at about 7:40 p.m.